way. What's your take? Do you think it's going to hold up?
Well, it was drafted by a number of people with DOJ who were drafting it specifically to survive a legal challenge. So I think it's got a much better chance than, for instance, Trump's executive order in 2020, and being passed by Congress also holds real weight as opposed to an executive order. So
I agree. Yes, passing laws in Congress turns out that's a good way to enact change. Yeah.
There you go.
But it's actually a really important point. The Supreme Court will give significantly more deference to Congress passing a law than they will to an executive order.
Yeah, and right now everybody's guessing in terms of what the next steps will look like. TikTok obviously going to sue to contest the constitutional validity, and they'll seek a temporary injunction. Whether that's granted is up in the air. So it remains to be seen whether the period of divestiture is a years-long process or a months-long process.
Right.
But
well, then question, to your point, like, will they even divest then if they lose? And there's kind of the incentives to, at the end of it, assuming is to get as much money as possible to sort of get your investment back, and also completely sabotage the product sort of out of spite, right?
Well, that's part of what I'm wondering, because in 2020, China updated its export control rules to cover a variety of technologies that it deemed sensitive, but it included technology that sounded a lot like TikTok's algorithm. That was the New York Times writing in 2020. And so the idea of buying TikTok without the algorithm, obviously it becomes a lot less valuable in that scenario. But I could still see scenarios where the has value to a Walmart or an Amazon. So
the fact
that completely
so many people are using it, you kind of have time to sort of figure it out, right? But to your point, like a lot of this Facebook investment, was why they realized they need more GPUs, because they had to figure out how to algorithmically sort of rank video, right? It was a really hard problem. Facebook is if you want TikTok to survive and thrive, Facebook is the best acquirer, right? They
and maybe the only can figure out the algorithm. I trust Facebook more than Walmart to figure out the algorithm,
No, exactly. That's obviously not going to be allowed. And by the way, for the record, I don't think it should be allowed, right? My ideal outcome is TikTok surviving and thriving as the greatest competitive threat to Facebook we basically ever seen. Yet ironically not defined as a Facebook competitor in the FTC's lawsuit, but Walmart, is Walmart going to figure that out? I mean, it's
right. Yeah. It would be an entertaining experiment, at least. But
yeah, so in any event, I mean, Microsoft is the other, I think, sort of obvious acquirer. They have an advertising business to plug into. They have, obviously they have servers and GPUs and AI and all that sort of thing. And I think they still have a burning desire to be a relevant consumer tech company.
To be cool.
Yeah, exactly. So those are but I think it's less compelling than they don't have the conversion bit, right? Which I think is just incredibly compelling. I think sort of outweighs almost everything else, with your caveat that the ability to actually maintain the app and the algorithm is going to be super, super important. So maybe Amazon is sort of the obvious choice here. I would definitely not, if I were like an Oracle shareholder, like they're going to be mooted as a potential. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. They don't have, like, at least like with Walmart, it's like, can they actually maintain this app, particularly if it's sort of sabotaged on the way out? Fair question. But the upside's super duper clear, right? Microsoft, It's like they can probably figure out the algorithm. The upside is maybe not as clear. Amazon, you kind of get both, so they're probably the most alluring. Oracle, it's like, why can they figure this out? And also, what's the payoff, right? Like, so that one would not make sense to me at all.
Yeah, well, it's probably an academic discussion, because I don't anticipate that Beijing is going to allow the sale at the end of all this. But it's interesting for the e-commerce dynamics, and that's why.
That's why it's kind of fun to talk about now, because like once it sort of gets real, then it's probably going to be a lot less interesting. Which, by the way, I mean, I think we talked about this before. The great sort of paradox here is that if China does not allow the sale, it makes the case for why this law had to be passed, right? If they do allow the sale, then it's like, well, maybe we didn't need to do this, but whatever. Too late now. Yeah.
Well,